So it all began when I was younger. My dad had a picture of a Lamborghini Countach on our wall. It was early 90s, so it was like that old, it almost looked like it was airbrushed kind of painting. And I remember just looking at it and thinking, it didn't look real. As a child, you can't process that is actually a real thing. You never saw a Countach. And then one day we were driving around in Oxford and we saw a Lamborghini Diablo, that was the first time seeing it. It drove around a roundabout, and I just remember thinking, these are real cars. And it was so funny because the owner had put Ferrari symbols on the side of the Diablo and then put X, like on the old World War II fighters. And at that moment, it was just like something just clicked in my head. I was like, I just love Lamborghinis. I love cars. I love everything. And then I would say that probably was the moment that I was like, oh yeah, cars is my thing. And that's when it started. When I was growing up, the car scene was more, it was like, I guess Max Power was the car scene, but I was never really into that I wasn't really into the hot hatches. I never really had that connection because my parents never had a hatchback. They were always having saloons. Like my dad had a W140 S-Class, my mum had an old C-Class. So I always idolized those saloon shapes and a lot of German cars. My dad started buying a Mercedes-Benz Enthusiast magazine, so I used to read that and I used to see early Brabus tunes. This was 25 years ago where it was really early, and then there was a brand called Clarkson as well that used to tune up Mercedes. And my dad would take me to car meets, but it would be Mercedes car meets. So for me, I guess it was just loads of older men. One thing I remember that everyone was super enthusiastic back then, and it didn't seem competitive. It seemed quite everyone was trying to help each other. If you went to a car meet and someone's car broke down, everyone would come together to try and fix it. I think that was inspirational because it showed a real sense of community. You have an emotional connection to them. You have this inherent need to tinker with things or learn about parts of the car that people don't, or people take for granted, I would say. So yeah, it was, back then the scene was very enthusiastic, I would say. When you find a fellow car enthusiast, it becomes you have this level of camaraderie that you don't really get on a day-to-day basis if you just talk to someone about something random. But when it comes to cars, people really pour into each other. And my car club, we're very it's strange because I just started it just so we could talk about cars and we can go for drives and stuff. But now it's we're all friends, and I spend more time with my car club than I do with my actual friends. It's just something that is hard to find, especially in this day and age where everything's quite fast. You don't really have a lot of time to spend on things with people. But with cars, it's everything just slows down. And I talk about cars with the guys in my car club or my friends for hours, on end, and no one gets bored. So yeah, I think it's beautiful. Right now I'm looking for an R129 Mercedes-Benz SL500, and when I was growing up, it was in a lot of music videos. I remember it being in Tupac videos and in movies back in the day, and it was just that was the peak convertible car at that time. And where I went into the music industry, I think the truth of the matter is I only did it because that's how I could afford buying the cars I wanted to buy. And now that I do a lot of car-focused things, I find that music has gone back to being that passion for me and just being something I do as a hobby, and then the cars is just something that essentially is my life. I absolutely see cars as a form of art because I don't look at them as necessarily one object. I look at them as the sum of all their parts, and it takes a level of artistry and obviously the engineering to put all those things together to make these things. And I think the beauty about cars is that, for example, I keep cars on my drive. I have some in storage, but I keep them on drive, and a lot of the time it's just so I can look at them and appreciate them. If my 1.5-year-old can point out a Lamborghini, and know exactly whether it's a Huracan, a Murcielago, a Diablo, he knows what a Lamborghini is. He knows what a Ferrari is, he knows what a Porsche is. These things are essentially pieces of art that we can just use on a day-to-day basis. I have a lot of two-seater supercars, sports cars, and I enjoy them, but I think now that I have a family, the ability to enjoy my passion with my family and share it with them became really important. However, in today's world, a lot of cars are cookie cutter. So essentially the same car, but just in a different guise. Whereas the Purosangue, I think for me, it felt like the first ground up car of this nature that has been built, that isn't shared across different companies, or the platform isn't trickled down. It's designed to be exactly what it is. And there's something about that that is so audacious. It's just, it's silly, it doesn't make sense. A V12 SUV, and it has 4 seats and the back doors open the wrong way around. Like, to me, it's just like, it's just like the pinnacle of sharing what we're passionate about. But the fact that I can do it with my family, that's what made this car stand out to me. That rush of like endorphins you get when you start bidding on something, and then people are like trying to compete against you. And then it suddenly becomes, it's not just I want this car for myself. There's a level of gamesmanship to it where it's like, I want this car for myself, but I want to make sure that I get this car, and I'm not going to let this person beat me to it, and I'm going to keep going. So it made the process way more interesting than just going to buy a car from like a dealership or just buying it from like a car marketplace. Like, it made it more, like, it feels like you earned it. It's like, yeah, I won this because at the end of the day, I was willing to go further than the other person. Doing that on Collecting Cars, it made the experience a lot more enjoyable, and then also I have a stronger connection to this than I thought I was going to have, purely based off of that. When it came up, it just made sense. It just made sense.